the freshman 15. Like, everybody says that. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna have Rice Krispie treats every day. Like, I didn't work out freshman year, and I was like, what if I continue that for all 4 years?
The worst advice that I've probably heard is that ramen is an acceptable dinner.
Juggling classes, making friends, studying tips, saving money. We're talking about all things college and giving you advice with real college students. Featuring today's hosts, Colby Martel, Domonique Cynthia, and Shan Rizwan. Welcome to the Campus Underground podcast. Sit back, relax, and learn new hacks.
Hello, everybody. This is Campus Underground, and welcome to the pod. Today we have with us Jeffrey, Imani, Emma, Sean, and Kobe, and we're going to talk everything college. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so I think for this portion, we wanted to reflect on, instead of, good advice, what is some bad advice you've heard from other peers, friends, family, college advice that you think isn't applicable, or like maybe you would tweak it, and what would you change from a typical advice that you would hear? So if anyone has any bad advice or some stereotypical advice that they want to fix.
I wouldn't say the advice that I got is bad per se, but it just didn't work for me. And it was the advice of, you can always change your major. And the thing is, like, my family knew what I wanted to do when I was in high school. And because I want to go into the film industry, that's such a niche industry. And it's like, why would I change my major? Like, that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I love. That's what I really want. So everyone around me kept saying, you can always change your major. But it's like, and I was just like, okay. But I was like, there's no way in hell I'm changing my major.
Personally, I've heard a lot of advice that with these easy classes, you can just study the day before. And then sometimes you realize that just puts you back a lot, and you might have to sacrifice sleep to cram for these exams. And then because you're cramming, you're probably just going to regurgitate what you studied on the test and then forget about it. So you're going to regret not actually learning from that class. So I'll say definitely don't cram, even if it is feasible to get the grade that you want. Just try to reflect on what you learn every single day and actually pay attention in your classes and seek help, as we were talking about earlier. And then in addition to that, on the topic of sleep, I think that's something that I feel like we can all contribute to in some way after this. But there's a lot of advice that when you have all these different priorities, you're probably going to just sacrifice sleep. But I would definitely recommend making sleep a priority as well, because the only reason that I've ever done poorly on exams is because of lack of sleep. I get to the exam and I'm just too tired and can't think straight. So even though I've learned the information, I can't show it on test day. And then even just not on test days, I can't contribute to class if I'm just fighting back my tiredness. So I think that sleep is actually really undervalued in college, because you can be awake with 2 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, but are you going to be functioning at your highest potential with that? Probably not. So with all these other things that we're focused on, we kind of neglect that. And I've had advice just like, okay, just sleep less, but that's definitely not a good idea. It's also a bad idea to sleep too much, but I think if you can find the sweet spot that works for you and you're not being lazy about it, or taking naps when you don't need to, although maybe for some people naps are helpful too. But I think just setting a bedtime, setting a time to wake up, maybe you have to adjust that if there's some opportunity that you want to pursue that's late at night. But at least for me, I tried to just stick to a consistent schedule for my sleep, and it's really beneficial.
Yeah, adding on to Colby, I feel like wellness is like the number one thing in college. You got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So like the worst advice that I've probably heard is that ramen is an acceptable dinner. Like, it's not really. Every now and then it's okay to eat just ramen for dinner, but like it's going to feel really, really great if you're getting like the proper nutrients and like actually putting food into your body that's real. Like, I love ramen too, don't get me wrong, but it'll make you feel like a lot worse if you're like studying all day, if you're really stressed out or something, and you're not nourishing your body and just fulfilling yourself. It's the same as sleep too. You just got to know when to eat and like make sure that you're putting that into your schedule. It's the most important. It'll make you succeed in everything else too.
Yeah. Also finding balance to exercise, at least even just to go on a walk and reflect on your day or just get the fresh air and sunlight. I think that's really can contribute to your academics and just well-being in general. I know for me, I've recently took on habits to go to the gym every day and either walk or run every day as well, because it's just so important to be physically fit, but then also that contributes to your mental health as well. So even if I have an unproductive day, at least I contribute some way to my health and it makes me feel good at the end of the day. But then also when you work on ways to make yourself better, you'll feel better and it will just contribute to all different aspects of your life. So I know that for me personally, I was involved with a lot of sports in high school, and I think a lot of college students realize that they kind of don't pursue that as college students because they're either not as good or they're just doing it for fun. So then they just have all these dining hall opportunities, easy food access. So then you start eating a lot and then not exercising, and you don't feel good about yourself at the end of the day, even though that's the most convenient means to live. And very tempting with all this free food as we talked about. But I think that if you can find healthy habits in college, it'll just make your whole life better. Even if it's hard to get to the gym, just make it a low barrier to access. Just say that you have to go to the gym. You don't even have to do anything. You just have to show up. And then eventually you're going to hop on the treadmill. You're going to lift some weights. Or even if you just go on a walk, anyone can spend 20 minutes a day just going on a walk. So it doesn't have to be this elaborate workout plan. Just do some sort of exercise and you'll feel a lot better about yourself, I think.
I think off of that, on like bad advice topic, the freshman 15, like everybody says that. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to have Rice Krispie treats every day. Like, I'm just going to not, I had this thing, it's so stupid looking back. I didn't work out freshman year. And I was like, what if I continue that for all 4 years and kind of like try to prove to myself that I can make it 4 years without working out because freshman 15. So I think that phrase like kind of it makes you think when you get to school, like I can put on 15 pounds and that's fine. Like it's expected. Everybody does it. Like that's the saying. But why do that to yourself? So I think that's kind of like a bad phrase to like go into college with, because it could be instead like, what if this is the best exercise year I've ever had, or like the most disciplined I've been with food. But I think like the first time you realize you don't have to ask your parents if you can have ice cream, or like you can just go to the dining hall and eat whatever you want, because there's so much food that you get like kind of excited and overwhelmed by the idea that you're an adult and you can do what you want now. But I think having that discipline is not talked about because freshman 15 is so casually said. So that's definitely something that is a bad piece of advice, I think.
I personally got the advice to beware of the freshman 15. So I agree with your point. It's just casually said and kind of an expectation that it will happen to you. But yeah, there's definitely ways to avoid it for sure. So be aware of that.
Absolutely. I think another topic would be procrastination. I think it's very normalized as college students that like, oh yeah, procrastination is normal. Like do tomorrow. If anyone's heard that. But I think, yeah, it's cliche, but like procrastination is like definitely, don't do it, don't procrastinate. And I think it's important to get organized, you have a calendar, have a planner, and although this stuff isn't like glamorous, like I think just your college experience will be so much better if you exercise like that self-discipline, like being disciplined in everything will just improve your life dramatically.
Is there any other ways that I know we all battle procrastination, so are there any other ways that we combat that, or do we just procrastinate?
I think for me what helps, because I'm a huge procrastinator, which sucks, I need to be better about it, but I think what helps me is like physically writing things down in my calendar. Because I keep a calendar at my desk, and I like physically write down everything that I need to do or things that I have planned that I can't forget about, because I also forget things very easily. So just like, I think physically writing it down also like helps me remember, which no one likes to handwrite things anymore, but I think for me it like helps me just remember it better.
Yeah, I think also like telling a friend like, "Oh, let's start studying like a week before the exam or something like that," and making a plan with it can help a lot because then you can keep each other accountable. You know that somebody's going to be waiting for you if you're not going to show up, so you have more of like an obligation to your friendship as well too.
Yeah, I personally just realized that I have to commit to it because it feels so much better to do it earlier and have that time after to feel free and can do whatever you want than the time before when it's always like weighing at the back of your head like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be doing my schoolwork. It kind of makes the whole experience worse because you just feel guilty. But I personally just set a time to do my homework. I lock my phone. I bought a lockbox literally because even if you have your phone, I mean, you could just give it to a friend or put it in a different room, but even still, just make it impossible to access any distractions and just put yourself, your work, your book, whatever you need, and just say, I'm going to do as much work as I can in the next 3 hours or something, and you'll just see that you'll do so much better than if you had all these other distractions with you. So that's what I do. And I know that there's other techniques like work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break, and just make sure you're not starving yourself from like just making it painful for you to study. It should be fun, as much fun as you can make it. Again, the mentality is everything. So just try to like learn, see how much you can learn in a certain amount of time, and try to like work with the time rather than against it at the deadline, and you'll just feel much better about yourself and probably produce better work.
So I want to hear more about this lockbox. So like, so what, do you have like a key for it? Do you throw
No,
a key?
you can't access it. It's literally just again, not sponsored, but it's just literally a box. You can set it for any time you want, up to 10 days. And the most I've ever done is like 3-4 hours.
Is there a way to like emergency?
The only way you can get it out is to break the plastic.
So like you set this thing for 10 days by accident?
I know. I'm nervous that someone's going to like play with me because I don't have a lock on my door. They could easily take it and put stuff in it, or even just lock the box and I can't do anything with it.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, I think it helps just because we're so like on our phones all the time. I think that all of our screen times are probably higher than we hope it to be. So again, if you imagine, say your screen time's 4 hours a day, and it's like TikTok, all these other things. Which if you're watching our videos, then yeah, that's good to keep it up. But otherwise, Sean only posts like 1 minute a day. Just watch that and then move on with your life. And just like reflecting on what you could do with this 4 hours that actually enhance your life rather than just wasting it because you're bored or not even bored, but just don't want to do the things that are on your agenda because you can have a later deadline,
One professor I interviewed gave me really good advice that he said that when he was in university, he treated school like a 9 to 5. So from 9 to 5, he went to class / did homework, and at 5 he was done. And it like prepared him for post-grad too, but then also like gave him a good work-life balance. That I started to do that, but I'm also really into rewards, a reward system. So I basically around 7 or 8 at school was, if I still had to work, then I of course would continue, but I would go on a skateboard ride around Penn Park, which was just our park, and would just have my music. And that was like, after a whole long day of working, I got to do what I loved. And then at the end of the night, if I had to still do work, I always had a bowl of ice cream, which might not have been the most healthy thing, but it was my reward for doing my work. So I think if like at the end of the day, I get to do this, but only if I work really hard, that works for me to like hold myself accountable, and maybe not locking my phone away. But that's crazy.
Yeah. I think there's a less extreme. I mean, like whatever works for you. I think also like you could give your phone to your friend or something, just to like hold on to this.
Airplane mode. Call it a day.
Delete Instagram or something.
I know, but it's so easy just to re-download it, or like even I have no notifications on, but that just incentivizes me more to check if someone DM'd me or something. So it's completely counterproductive. The only way that works for me is just to get rid of it.
That's the thing. You found what works for you.
Yeah, you do.
So like, as long as you find what works for you, trying different things, then kudos to you, man.
Thank you.
But any other ways?
Anything? How about socially, like bad advice, like going to parties or like making friends? Anything that you heard, you're like, oh, this actually isn't the right advice for going about it.
I heard like the test score will like disappear, but the memories won't. Or like something like that where the memories are going to stay. So go to the party. I personally don't necessarily agree. I think your GPA really matters with getting a job, which is the whole reason why we go to college, is to hopefully leave with a job. Unless you're not into that, then kudos to you. But the GPA really matters because if you don't have, like even with some like, specifically I was in business school. So with like finance jobs or consulting jobs, there's certain companies that if your GPA is not at a certain level, they don't even look at your resume. They have like a AI, whatever, just spits your resume out to not even be looked at. So I think having the GPA that you want, if that's for you above a 3.0, if that's for you below a 3.0, then do your thing. But I think the GPA matters so much. In freshman year, I was like, no, the party, let's do the party. And then I realized when it started to get tough to get internships of like, oh no, let's choose the books. So that's definitely something that is important that people don't talk about, but you still should have a social life, of course, but you're there for school. I do think it should be the number one priority, but I think that's a hot take. So if anybody has a different thought, I would love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really just depends on your goals. Like it's all situational. Like I think if you're going into like a finance job or certain careers, like GPA matters, but like, you know, if you want to do your own thing or like some jobs that don't need that, you know, super high GPA, like you just, you know, need the credits or whatever, I think like then you can, you know, give and take with your social responsibilities. And yeah, it's all just about balance. And I think nothing in excess is a good rule.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same side as Dom though, because I feel like when I first came to college, people were like, oh, GPA doesn't matter. Like, I was really focused on doing marketing too. So they were like, oh, GPA won't be that important in your field. So it's okay. Like, you just balance everything out, right? But then as I took higher level classes, I was like, oh, maybe I'm interested in finance or consulting, but I don't know if my GPA is at that level now. And so I hadn't set myself up in the past for future me to just have a wide range of opportunities for myself. So I feel like if you have a good GPA, you will never regret having a good GPA. I think just make sure that you are always keeping yourself in check. Never study for longer than you have to. If you're like pulling all-nighters, that's not the move either. So just try to find that balance. But I think it really, really doesn't hurt to have a good GPA. So that's my take.
For sure.
It's
all. I think it's all balance. Like if I have a good GPA,
Why not?
Yeah.
But I think like
a good GPA.
I think like it's like just like don't obsess about a certain number if you don't have to. Like if it's not like a 4.0 or whatever, like don't beat yourself up about it. But I also think it's like it's not a trade-off between just social life too. Like you could also like, you know, pick up an internship or like do a side project where you sacrifice some GPA, which I think could also be beneficial to getting a job. Like in like CS or something, you do like a side project, and then you could put that on your resume, and it might not necessarily help your GPA, but it could be the reason you get a job or something.
Yeah. I don't think that it has to be a trade-off at all, actually. I think that we have so much time as college students, just again, reflecting on how much time we spend on our phones, right? If we lower that, we have so much time to do other things. But because the class schedule are so flexible, and we have, at least at my school, we have 3-day weekends. I know that's not at every school, but you can pick when you want your classes and what works best for you. So it's not necessarily a trade-off, because sometimes by going to these parties, by going to doing things that make you happy and focusing on your mental health as the priority rather than academics, then your academics will be better as a byproduct of that too. Because if you're just preventing yourself from all these things that you enjoy and just focusing on getting the highest grade possible, then I think in that case, then you would regret it at the end of the day. But instead, if you focus on what makes you happy, and then you're happy when you do these things that you have to do, like study or take exams, then I feel like you're just going to do better at those anyway, because you're a more happy person and not just doing it because you have to get a good grade, but just doing it because it's just what you do and you're a happy person, so you'll do better at it.
Well, I don't think necessarily like having the most perfect balanced life is going to lead to like, I don't know if this is what you're trying to say, but like if you're happy, then you'll like do better on your studying. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, yeah, it's just like if you just are so focused on your studies, that you neglect anything else that could contribute to your health or relationships with other people. I'm not saying it's like because you hang out with this person, you're going to get lower grade. That's not how it works. It could actually help you to hang out with these people, and maybe you're going to do work together, or even if you just have a break. Breaks are very important, or sleep. All these things aren't trading off. Like, for instance, if you say, I need to study 4 hours and then I'll sleep 4 hours, maybe it's not a trade-off, right? You can find both. And then if you sleep more, you're probably going to do better than if you study more sometimes too.
I think there's like some things that, like, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's not going to be fun. Like, not like there's some things in life that you just have to do. Maybe some type of studying and maybe in some random class is just going to be that. I kind of wanted to add on to something said previously about GPA mattering for jobs. And in addition to that, also to a degree mattering for things on campus as well. At my school, like for study abroad opportunities, you have to have a certain GPA just to even apply. And then they also prioritize people with like higher GPAs. So that's a big thing. And maybe there's also minimum requirements, obviously, that to graduate or to be part of athletics or be part of Greek life. But the study abroad example stands out to me as something like, even to just experience some forms of campus life, right? To an extent, right? GPA matters, but obviously, you know, I think everybody here agrees, like 3.83 versus 3.85, like nobody really cares.
Yeah, I think what you said is really well said, with like you said as well, Emma, but like you don't want anything to limit you. And I think it's similar when you're applying, and we all had to take SATs and ACTs. Nowadays, I guess it doesn't matter as much. But when we were applying, just knowing like, hey, I got the score that is like the typical score for my school, now I know that that's not the reason that I don't get in. You never want it to be like, I don't think I got it because my GPA. Because that's like, man, like I could have tried maybe a little bit harder or like studied a little harder. So you just don't want any regrets. And I think caring about your GPA leads to the minimum regrets. But of course, having social life, like you said, having friends is so important. And those are the people you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. So it is, at the end of the day, super important. But man, the GPA matters.
I think it's just goals, like knowing what you want. So like, if you want to study abroad, then you should prioritize it. If you have those jobs you want to apply for, you should prioritize. I think that's what Emma's
saying, is that you might not know.
Yeah. So in that case, if you also don't know, then you prioritize it.
Yeah.
But like for some people, like maybe they don't need to prioritize it as much, but like all their friends are telling them that.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, like where you know what you want to do and you don't need that perfect GPA, like you talk to upperclassmen, like, oh yeah, mine's like a 3.7, like you're fine if you don't have a 4.0, whatever. Like in that case, like don't stress as much is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think like the bad advice, right, if like we're on topic here, would be like either grades are the only thing that matters or grades don't matter at all.
Yeah.
Like it's somewhere in between, and it'll kind of depend on your goals, maybe, I don't know, kind of those
I feel like it's a sliding scale on the spectrum, but everyone has to be like at some point in towards the middle, because it just also like depends on your major and like what you're studying. Like for film, for an example, like grades, like your GPA is just not the most important thing in the film industry. Like people don't even look at that. They just really, to break in is building relationships and networking. Like I think networking is like the most important thing to break into the film industry and to be able to get work. Like people don't even care where you went to school most of the time. So for me, like, yes, I do care about my grades, but they're like, I don't obsess about them anymore because I just don't need to. It's not necessary for my major. But if you're like trying to become a doctor or something, yeah, that's pretty important. You're gonna have to keep those grades up because you need to like know what you're doing. Like on an academic level and an intellectual level, you need to like know a lot of information if you want to become like a doctor, lawyer, something like that. But for me personally, I don't have to obsess over grades, which I think for me is very freeing, because then I do have opportunities to go to film sets and like network with people at school, network with alumni as well. So yeah, I think it really does just depend on like what you're studying and what your priorities are.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that people are so focused on the actual grade rather than just learning in your class, because I feel like if you learn everything that you're taught, you will get a good grade, you know? So I think it just adds a lot of stress that we're just cramming for these exams because we're fearful that we're going to get a lower grade, or that more so than that we want a high grade, you know? It's more of the fear that we'll fail than just hope that we'll do well. I think that's at least how I feel a lot. I always, I'm just so stressed at the exam because you don't know what to expect and you don't know whether you're adequately prepared. But if you just pay attention in your classes, you study as much as you should, you talk with your friends, you do all the things that we told you in this video, I think that you're just going to do well. You're not going to have to worry about the grades. And I think the stress and anxiety is just holding us back from just doing as well as we can. Although at the same time, a lot of times, once you start the exam and you realize you're prepared, all that stress goes away. So I don't know how much of a factor it is, but at least you'll feel better going into the exam if you just pay attention, do the studying that's necessary, and just have a whole full balanced life. I think that's the best way to succeed.
So could we all agree that to succeed is to try your best and balance?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
if you try your best, then that's literally all you can do. And then maybe after the exam, you can talk to your professor about how you could have done better, and maybe they'll even give you partial credit or stuff like that too. Maybe your grade can be renegotiated after the fact, or a lot of professors just value participation a lot too. So they'll factor that in. As long as you're engaged in the classes and you show that you really do want to succeed, then you're probably going to get the grade that you want if you're taking all these steps to get it, even if you don't do as well on the actual exam objectively as you hoped. But I think if you're following all these steps, you have a healthy lifestyle, you study, you pay attention, you're probably going to do well.
Awesome. So today we talked about things that we heard that probably wasn't the best advice, but I think we all can agree that we gave everybody listening really good advice today. And I hope everybody listening felt like they received really good advice. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to Campus Underground today. I hope you learned a ton of new things and gained some insights, and we'll join again sometime soon.